I don't understand why you insist on learning things the hard way, Trey, but you gonna learn. Oh yeah, you gonna learn.
To reveal the hidden God, we must first analyze the old biblical and Babylonian gods commonly known as Noah, Dagon and Nimrod. There are a myriad of other gods that connect with this topic, but for the sake of over-encumbering the viewer, I will mainly focus on the three deities mentioned. Dagon, a god of the Philistines. The Etymologicum Magnum says that Dagon was Saturn, others say he was Jupiter, others say Venus, whom the Egyptians worshipped under the form of a fish. The derivation of the name Dagon, as that of a fish god, is from a fish. The Hebrew word Dagon signifies a fish, say the etymologists, from its fertility, and corn from its increase. We add that Dagon may at the same time allude to preservation, as a fish is preserved in the water, to preservation, as corn is preserved in the earth, both in reference to newness of life. For indeed Dagon is called Siton, the god of corn, because he discovered bread corn, say the mythologists, and, no doubt, mankind received the use of bread corn from him. Dagon, says Sanchuniathon, was akin to Cronus, that is Saturn, but Saturn was also Noah, and thus, Noah is Dagon. Sanchuniathon also informs us that Dagon, after he had found out bread corn, and the plough, was called Zeus Aerotrios, the god of the plough. How exactly this points to Noah, who is described as a husbandman, that is a farmer, needs no remark. The Phoenician author Sanchuniathon also says Dagon means Siton, that being the Greek word for grain. Sanchuniathon further explains, and Dagon, after he discovered grain and the plough, was called Zeus Aerotrios. The word aerotrios means plowman, pertaining to agriculture. Dagon was represented as a man with the tail of a fish. There can be no doubt that he was connected with the Canaanitish system, as Derceto or Atargatis, the same as Ashtoreth, was worshipped under a like mixed shape at Ashkelon. In form he is the same as the Assyrian god supposed to correspond to the Roman god Saturn. The Hebrew doctrines say this idol Dagon was made from the navel downward in form of a fish, but the navel upward in form of a man. This they collect from Samuel 5:4. The two palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. And furthermore they say, the idol Dagon had his name from the Hebrew dag, signifying in the holy language, a fish, according to which description we may English him, the Philistine Neptune. Others derive the name from Hebrew Dagon, signifying corn, and they say that he first invented the use of the plough, and corn, whence they translate him Jupiter Aerotrios. In this respect we call him the Philistines Saturn, because antiquity makes Saturn the first inventor of agriculture, and therefore paints him with an hook or scythe in his hand, as being the fittest hieroglyphic for agriculture. A description of the Saxon Caesar, or Saturn, is given, which declares him to be an old man, standing on a fish, with a basket of fruits and flowers in his right hand, and a wheel in his left. I think this connects him clearly with the old Sidonian idol, Dagon, of which we read in the scriptures. For the term Dagon implies corn of all sorts, and it is known that Saturn ruled over agriculture, and of course over corn. Hence, the fish on which Sita stands appears to be equivalent to the fishy parts, or lower parts, of Dagon. The god, Dagon, first appears in extant records about 2500 BC in the Murray texts and in personal Amorite names in which the Mesopotamian gods Elu, El, that is Saturn, Dagon, and Adad are especially common. Joseph Fontenrose first demonstrated that, whatever their deep origins, at Ugarit, Dagon was identified with El, that is, Saturn. Dagon is likewise identified with Bacchus, the god of wine, who was known as Ichthys, the fish god, before Jesus was born. Alexander Hislop, author of the To Babylons, states that Jesus began to be popularly called Ichthys, that is, the fish, manifestly to identify him with Dagon. Greek Dionysus is the equivalent of Roman Bacchus, and both are known as gods of the wine and viticulture. And it is no secret the character of Jesus is always found around the symbolism of fish, bread, and wine. Transubstantiation is the change whereby, according to the teaching of the Catholic Church, the bread and the wine used in the sacrament of the Eucharist become, not merely as by a sign or a figure, but also in actual reality the body and blood of Christ. The Catholic Church teaches that the substance or reality of the bread is changed into that of the body of Christ and the substance of the wine into that of his blood, while all that is accessible to the senses remains unchanged. What remains unaltered is also referred to as the accidents of the bread and wine, but this term is not used in the official definition of the doctrine by the Council of Trent. The manner in which the change occurs, the Catholic Church teaches, is a mystery. The signs of bread and wine become, in a way surpassing understanding, the body and blood of Christ. Dagon equals fish, Saturn equals bread, Bacchus equals wine. And they further prayed to Saturn, "Give us this day our daily bread." Because the very name of Saturn was derived from the word satu, to sow, as corn is sown in the earth, and sator, the sower. The Philistines had a god they called Dagon, from dag equals a fish, and on equals the sun equals the fish sun, or the sun in Pisces. Just as Jesus, Ichthyes, personifies the sun in the age of Pisces. In this we see a solid connection between Dagon and Jesus, and thus, Saturn is Noah, Noah is Dagon, Dagon is Jesus, Jesus is Saturn, in layman's terms. Jordan Maxwell even pointed out, the Hebrews themselves worshipped Dagon as Noah. The mythical Hebrew male was adapted from the Babylonian account of Gilgamesh, although their Bible stated he was a Philistine god. The Christian Catholic faith today represents him and worships him as well, using the crown for their demigod the Pope. Using the ancient fish god's staff and crown, why do humans so ignorant and needy not question any of the origins of these symbolic meanings? Bel as Cronus, or Saturn, he was the father of the gods, and the father of the gods was also known as Janus, who was called the god of gods, from whom the gods had their origin. Now, Ovid makes Janus say of himself, "The ancients called me Chaos," and Chaos was the Greek god of confusion. Homer proclaims Janus and Saturn to be two titles of the same person. Dagon, the fish god, represents the deity Noah as a manifestation of the same patriarch who had lived so long in the waters of the deluge. As the Pope bears the keys of Janus, who was also previously shown to be Saturn, so he wears the mitre of Dagon. The two-horned mitre, which the Pope wears when he sits on the high altar at Rome and receives the adoration of the cardinals, is the very same mitre worn by Dagon, the fish god of the Philistines and Babylonians. Kronos or Saturn was no particular deity, but the universal numen of the whole world. This is plainly affirmed by Dionysius of Halicarnassus, where, commending the fertility of Italy, he writeth thus, "Wherefore it is no wonder, if the ancients thought this country to be sacred to Saturn, they supposing this god to be the giver and perfecter of all happiness to men, whether we ought to call him Kronos, as the Greeks will have it, or Cronus as the Romans, he being either way such a god as comprehends the whole nature of the world." But the word Saturn was Heterorean, which language was originally Oriental, and being derived from Hebrew Satur, signifies hidden, so that by Saturn was meant that hidden principle of the universe, which containeth all things, and he was therefore called by the Romans, Deus Latus, the hidden god, as the wife of Saturn in the pontifical books is Latia Saturni, and the land itself, which in the Heterorean language was Saturnia, is in the Roman Latium, from whence the inhabitants were called Latins, which is as much as to say, the worshippers of the hidden god. This is the same as the first principle of the Egyptian dryad called Amun, which signifies hidden, or Jupiter Amun. Jupiter is visibly derived from the Hebrew word Jehovah, which was read differently Jehu or Jau, which signifies the being that is, the self-existent being. To this Jau was added the word father, or pater, and hence came Jau Pater, or Jupiter of the Romans. The Greeks translated the word Jau by Zeus. This word Zeus they changed into Dios, and by adding Pater called the supreme god Diospater, the father of life. St. Austin himself concludes that according to this Varronian notion of Saturn, likewise, the pagan Jupiter and Saturn were really but one and the same numen. Therefore, we may with good reason affirm that Saturn was another name for the supreme god amongst the pagans. It signifies that secret and hidden power, which comprehends, pervades, and supports the whole world. According to tradition, declares Dr. Hermann Hohe, Saturn, Nimrod, fled from his pursuers to Italy. The Apennine Mountains of Italy were anciently named the Mountains of Nemrod, or Nimrod. Nimrod briefly hid out at the site where Rome was later built. The ancient name of Rome before it was rebuilt in 753 BC was Saturnia, the site of Saturn's, Nimrod's, hiding. There he was found and slain for his crimes. Likewise, the worship of this hidden god is still prominent in the Catholic Church today. The Pope, as the fountain of knowledge or head of the mysteries in the Church of Rome, holds the same position as did Nimrod at the head of the Chaldean mysteries. Nimrod, as god of the Chaldean mysteries, was known as Saturn. Saturn and mystery are both Chaldean words, and they are correlative terms. As mystery signifies hidden system, so Saturn signified the hidden god. To those who were initiated the god was revealed, to all else he was hidden. Now, the name Saturn in Chaldee is pronounced Satur, but consists only of 4 letters, thus stir. By way of gematria, apply the value of the letters in the Hebrew or Chaldee alphabets, and you have the number 666. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666. It is well known the name Jesus in Greek is Jesus, and Jesus when applied to gematria adds up to 888. However, in basis 9 numerology the name Jesus is worth 666. Likewise, with the character of Jesus being a representation of the sun, it comes as no surprise that Agrippa's magic sun square also adds up to the number 666. Now, it is necessary to mention it is no coincidence that we find Saturn, Jesus and the sun bearing this apocalyptic number, no matter which method of numerology be applied. The chances of finding all 3 names connecting with the number 666 are 1,000,000 to 1. What must be noted here is that the number 666 is a number that directly references the sun or the beast that rises in the east. From the Babylonian standpoint, the god of Babylon and his successor, the Pope, bear the number 666, and the Pope represents the present Saturn at the head of the mystery of iniquity. The original name of Rome was Saturnia, the city of Saturn. It was probably so named by the representative of the mystery of Babylon, who was stationed on Capitol Hill long before the fabled founding of Rome. The Pope, as the head of the mysteries of the Church of Rome, requires the services of the Church of Rome to be in the Latin language, and calls his church the Latin Church. Saturn and Latinos have precisely the same exact meaning. Latin is from the Greek Platinos, which is synonymous with Saturn, and each belong to the hidden one or the god of mystery. Apply the value of the letters in the Greek alphabet and you have Latium, Latinus, the Roman form of the Greek Platinos, and Latio, to lie hid, all alike come from the Chaldean, Lat, which has the same meaning. The name, Lat, or the Hidden One, had evidently been given, as well as Saturn, to the great Babylonian god. This is evident from the name of the fish Latus, which was worshipped along with the Egyptian Minerva, in the city of Latopolis in Egypt, now Esna, that fish Latus evidently just being another name for the fish god Dagon. We have seen that Ichthys, or the fish, was one of the names of Bacchus, and the Assyrian goddess Atargatis, with her son Ichthys, is said to have been cast into the lake of Ascalon. If then, the Pope is as we have seen, the legitimate representative of Saturn, the number of the Pope, as head of the mystery of iniquity, is just 666. But still further, it turns out, as we have seen, that the original name of Rome itself was Saturnia, the city of Saturn. This is vouched to like by Ovid, by Pliny, and by Aurelius Victor. Thus, then the Pope has a double claim to the name and number of the beast. He is the only legitimate representative of the original Saturn at this day in existence, and he reigns in the very city of the Seven Hills where the Roman Saturn formerly reigned, and from his residence in which the whole of Italy was long after called by his name, being commonly named the Saturnian land. But what bearing, it may be said, has this upon the name Lady Knows, which is commonly believed to be the name of the beast? Much. It proves that the common opinion is thoroughly well founded. Saturn and Lady Knows are just synonymous, having precisely the same meaning, and belonging equally to the same god. The observer cannot forget the lines of Virgil, which showed that Lady Knows, to whom the Romans or Latin race traced back their lineage, was represented with a glory around his head, to show that he was a child of the sun. Thus then, it is evident that, in popular opinion, the original Lady Knows had occupied the very same position as Saturn did in the mysteries, who was equally worshipped as the offspring of the sun. Moreover, it is evident that the Romans knew that the name Lady Knows signified the Hidden One, for their antiquarians invariably affirm that Latium received its name from Saturn, lying hid there, on etymological grounds. Then, even on the testimony of the Romans, Lady Knows is equivalent to the Hidden One, that is, to Saturn, the god of mystery. While Saturn, therefore, is the name of the beast, and contains the mystic number, Lady Knows, which contains the same number, is just as peculiar and distinctive an appellation of the same beast. The Pope then, as the head of the beast, is equally Lady Knows or Saturn, that is, the head of the Babylonian mystery. When, therefore, the Pope requires all his services to be performed in their Latin tongue, that is as much as to say that they must be performed in the language of mystery. When he calls his church the Latin Church, that is equivalent to a declaration that it is the Church of Mystery. Thus then, by this very name of the Pope's own choosing, he has with his own hands written upon the very forehead of his apostate communion its divine apocalyptic designation, Mystery Babylon the Great. The Pope, therefore, undoubtedly bears the number of the beast, or that man of sin. The city of Rome is Saturnia, or the city of Saturn, the hidden god, the god of the mysteries, whom the Pope represents. The Latin Church being the church of the mystery, and the Latin tongue being the language of the mystery, is the reason why the Pope, who bears the number of the mystery, requires the services of the mystery held in the church of the mystery to be conducted in the language of the mystery. And in no way is this secluded to the Roman Catholic Church, as it is no secret that the basis for Christianity and its teachings lay on the foundation of the Roman Catholic Church, and as it has been shown and proved that Saturn masquerades in the guise known as Jesus Christ, the child of the sun, with a glory around his head. Hence, the hidden god Saturn.